What's up, guys? It's Wick. Been a while with the video. Long story short, it's been a long road. I came really close to quitting. I'll just tell you now. We were just frustrated. My server 891 had never gotten a merger. I told Evony, I'm not making any more videos. I'm not promoting your game at all until we get a merger. We got knocked out of the last echelons by an alliance who we used to routinely crush, and they got two mergers. So we get punished for coining and being inactive. They get two mergers and just knock us out of echelon. So we just had enough. We're like, no, we need a merger. This is happening. So they did give me the okay. I'm finally getting a merger, so I'm back to making videos. And this is the one that I've been getting asked for a lot for the keep build video. And this is probably what I still to this day, which is surprising, I haven't made a video in so long, get about between 3 and up to 10 people a week sending me their scouts, sending me their keeps, and saying, what do I need to build? And this is the most bizarre question, and I think hopefully after this video you'll understand why. But I don't know what you're building. I don't know what you're going for. I don't know what your resources are. I don't know what your parameters are here. So that's like asking me, it's really bizarre. It's like this game is so many possibilities with keep builds. It's kind of like asking me to like what your favorite flavor of ice cream is or what your favorite band is. I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, but I can try to help guide people, and that's what the point of my videos are. If you're new to my videos, I say go play it at 1.5x. I try not to be long-winded, but sometimes when I'm explaining stuff, I'll get a little long-winded, so I'll try to not do that today. So let's talk a little bit about what I want to start with here, and that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Evony is the epitome of the Dunning-Kruger effect. The people who understand it know they're not going to understand it, except for maybe Derek Defies. And if you haven't followed him yet and you're following me, I'm like high school level. That guy's like PhD astrophysics. He's a literal nuclear physicist. So much credit to Derek. Highly recommend following him if you haven't. You'll know why as I go through this. But Dunning-Kruger effect essentially says the people who know the least are the people who are most confident. That I know everything moment where people come into this game and like they're so absolutely certain. Like, it's so funny because I've listened to them and I'm like, it's so funny how you can be so confidently incorrect and not be right about something, but be so sure that what they know is the fact, and it's just not the way this game works. I also find a lot of people do things in this game, which was the most shocking thing about it, something that has so many facets, so many academic arguments you can make about statistics and math. And these people are like so confidently incorrect because they're doing what everybody else does. I've literally asked people, I'm like, why is it whenever we do Undead, you want us to go Siege when Siege can just kill the whole army before they get anywhere near you? And that's what my server did with these people who played on older servers, who started on mine. And nobody gave me a right answer. That like kind of started me down this road of trying to figure out why people do stuff. And oftentimes the answer is, well, that's what everybody else does. That's not the way to be successful in life, and that's not the way to be successful in the game. So knowing that you don't know everything, I like to think maybe I'm on the right half of that curve somewhere. I know I'm not all the way at the end, but I do know that I make decisions sometimes in the game that do help, and will give you a leg up on ultra coiners, on people who can jump $500,000 into this game. So I'm not one of those people, in case you're wondering. So yes, it's important to understand that your confidence will dip as you understand there's more that you learn that you don't know. And then it starts to grow as you become more knowledgeable and start to learn this game. That's the point of my videos. The most important idea, and again, this is what I'm thinking when someone goes, what should I build? And I'm like, what? Like, who asked you that? Like, how am I supposed to answer that? The keep type you want to build, and the person that you are, and there are certain keep types in this game you'll find, if you've been around it for long enough, they determine all of these things. The keep build, what troop types you're going to have at what layers, the resources required is going to be dictated what type you're going to be, what kind of buffs you want, if you're chasing universal, defending versus attacking, also covered in my older videos. The Blazon selection. Holy crap. Blazons are worth hundreds of percentage points of buffs. If you get them right or wrong, you're going to be either missing out or be able to dominate with those differences. Blazons are one of the biggest game changers in this game, and so many people get them wrong. What I've found whenever I've tried to help people in my alliance to kind of straighten them out and make them more salient or effective in Battlefield, most of the time, the most common screw up, if you will, is the Blazons. Subgens, like which subgens you're chasing. There's subgens that are working for a small keep that are completely useless for a big keep, and vice versa. There's some that are for attacking, some for not attacking. I mean, who are you using to attack? Again, the subgen choice is different. I've helped people in my alliance who are different sizes than I, and tell them I have them going for subgens that I would never touch. So that's also going to be affected by what kind of keep you are. The culture you're using, mostly, but choosing between Japan, which is attacking, or Russia, which is defending. The spirit beast seals you're chasing, those are very precious. Which ones are you going to jack up? Which ones are you going to ignore? Subgen gear, subgen spirit beast, the subgen dragons. Yes, the new dragon that just came out, the white one, Gryffindor or Gryffindor or whatever his name is. He belongs either on a wall gen for a non-coiner probably, or belongs on a subgen. He's beastly. If you can actually have a talent that gives you multiple debuffs, great guy to put on there. Better than a spirit beast who give you one debuff. Monarch gear, which monarch gear are you putting on? Wall generals, right? Don't forget, monarch gear has attacking and universal, and so you use it. The universal, which is lower buffs for defending, you use the attacking, which is higher if you're an attack keep. That's small and just joins rallies and ghosts. Wall generals, Jesus, oh my God, right? I could do a whole video on wall generals. Subsidy choices, again, Japan versus Russia, even famous cities, even cultural subs, even historics. There are some that you don't want if you're not playing or not salient. The new one that's coming out with Shalans has buffs that are only good for the battlefield. If you're not a battlefield person and you're more SVS, it's completely useless for you, right? Again, you get it for being in battlefield, so I guess that's makes sense. Senate choices, right? The senators, who you're going to use the Ascension, the Blood of Ares, which are precious, to get those Ascensions up, who you're going to put in which one, and it's like, that's another one I could do. I mean, PvP gens, choosing which general you're going to use. Do you want guys with attacking buffs? Do you want guys with universal buffs? Are you somebody who's going to be, are you smaller in a big alliance? Are you mostly going to be reinforcing, right? So if you're using all attacking gens and you're mostly going to be reinforcing or in rallies, it doesn't make sense to sink all your money into attacking gens. The keep wrench selection, are you going to chase this? Are you going to coin them? Most of the time you have to coin them now. Are you going to spending those precious boxes on this one who's mostly siege and mount? Again, the keep wrench selection is going to be determined. The research focus, are you going to be chasing the research in this strip for the melee troops? Are you going to be attacking using them mostly in the range troops column? I mean, these are all like which one you need to do first. Again, these all matter. And then the gear refining type, which we've done the whole on the buffs video, flat versus percent. And that's the funniest thing. I love going into Discord channels and seeing people arguing with each other over percentage or flat buffs. What do you use, right? Wall gen, mostly flat. If you're going to use the billion layer T1s, the smaller guys with attacking are going to be using mostly percentages because that does better at the higher level tier troops. These are all conversations that people have, and it's the reason this game, despite having people who own it and run it who probably hate most of their customers, the reason I keep playing is the community, is because you can nerd out about this stuff and you can have conversations with people about this stuff. That's what I don't mind people reaching out to me and saying, hey, I thought of this thing, what do you think? And I love having those conversations. You guys can reach out to me day in, day out, because whenever I'm done with surgery, done with time, and I get the time to respond, I'll be like, hey, that's a great point. Let's break it down. I just I just had a conversation with Sang about which buffs are you going to chase on the Blazons? Do you want to do defending or do you want to do attacking? And it's funny, we had this whole conversation, and I said to him, and this is, by the way, why I love Sang. When I'm wrong, he'll tell me I'm wrong. When I'm right, he'll say, no, I agree with you. And he'll very quick to say, okay, you have a good point, let's do this. Whenever I said to him, I said, when you put defending buffs on, especially if you're a big keep like he is, most of your defending against rallies. Most rallies have no subgens, have no subsidies. So your debuffs are on, their debuffs are off. So when you do a defending buff, and so you're choosing 25% defense, that's 25 whole percent over the attacking troops. You're going to have them debuffed. They're going to not have you maximally debuffed. When you're doing attacking and you do 25%, you're, for the most part, especially when it counts, right? If it counts, they're going to have you maximally debuffed. So a 25% attacking buff actually in a rally is going to be 12.5%, because they're going to get you with the debuffs. So, and then there's a flip side of that argument. Well, you really need that 12.5% because they already have that advantage versus what's best for you and where you're going to keep the money. I've always been very upfront about the fact that I'm a defensive player. I like defense. I want to build a strong defense. I think that's the game. I think having the same troop kill multiple attacks is much more cost efficient and will get you much further and save you a lot more heals than a weak defense and strong offense where every time you send a rally, every troop dies, right, except for the survival buff. And when you're on defense, the same troops will kill multiple armies. So you're getting more value that way, in my mind, the way the game works. So let's talk about the keep types, right? You have the scouts. These are the guys who are like usually a farm. You see them in SVS. On occasion, you see them in Battlefield, which is hilarious. And they're like 90 million. In Battlefield, it'll be like 200 million. And they just come and their job is to scout you. They will scout you over and over again to annoy you because they want you to hit them. They want you to hit them so that, especially in SVS, so that they know immediately what kind of buffs you have. Because there are a lot of keeps, we see it in Battlefield, we see it in SVS, who are K44, and then they attack, and you find out they'll send a siege at this thing, and they've got like 2,200% siege buffs, and you're like, that's a K41. That's not even a K40. I mean, a K42. He got to K44, but he never did his military academy, he never did his tech, and you know immediately his tech power is in the low twos, right? So the scouts want you to hit them, don't hit them. The trap keep, that's usually between 2 and 5 billion. I did a whole video on that. Yes, the powers have changed with the K45 update, but the concept is not. It's all meat. It's all bone, no meat. So depending on the build, they're usually soloable because a lot of the trap keeps are people who are non-coiners. So they're usually going to be a K40 to 40 and 39. Back when K40 was max, yeah, that was a totally, doable thing to be a trap keep. Now with T16s, now with K44s with 4 and 5,000 buffs out there, absolutely not a foolproof way to go positive in SVS or Battlefield. So, and then rallies too. You can nail them in Battlefield, you port lock them, and then there's nothing they can do. So they've been a little bit neutered by the update. The mid keeps, right? The people are trying to transition from a ghostable, I know that's not a real word, ghostable small. So somebody who's like 3 billion who is joining rallies and ghosting all of his rallies and just hitting, joining rally, heal, ready to go, to a defendable real keep that you can throw reins into and will at least either go even or positive on defenses. Then you have the tank keeps, right? That's 15 to 30 billion. These guys are strong research, K43 plus. They've got a bunch of dragons. They've made all-stars. They've got T15s unlocked. Possibly, but usually the guys who are T16s unlocked at this point because it's so goddamn expensive. And by the way, F you, Evony, for changing the requirements for K45 when I was literally right there. The fact that you have to do all 4 troop-type buildings to 44 before you can go K45, F you, Evony. Like, that's such bullshit. That's this kind of stuff that makes me say they effing hate us. They're so goddamn greedy. Titan Keep, 31 plus billion, right? That's usually a 44 plus right now. It's usually the rally runner. He's the strongest few keeps in the alliance. They usually have the monster debuffs and buffs. They're usually pretty good and pretty strong. They're strong reinforcers. They're the guys who are the rally runners. So the Titans, if you know, usually it's going to be a heavy coiner. So the question is, which one are you, and which one do you want to be? So when people send me their scouts or their scouting report, and say, hey, what should I build? I'm like, who are you? All right, are you some rich sheik? Are you a Bitcoin bro who's got like 16 million in cash who wants to just dump 200,000 in here? Or are you, somebody, an Eskimo from Alaska who like literally like sold like whale blubber for like 6 cents and doesn't even know what iTunes cards are? So I don't know. That doesn't help me, okay? So the keep is not, it's not a monolithic thing, the build. It's what you wanted to make it, and it's largely going to be affected by your resources available and what your goals are in the game. So let me start a review here because I do have a radical concept in terms of keep builds that people need to understand in terms of making you more effective in Battlefield. This is probably what the most important thing is to talk about here. If you go back to troop builds, and I'll do a little review here. You go back to your rally spot, right? The most important spot in the game, what I think where you get the most data. You go to your troop details, you find all your troops, you tap on the troop type on the left, where the number is, and you get the information page on each troop type. You have attack, defense, HP, range, speed, load. Now, Derek, again, to his credit, already knows that these are all lies, okay? The speed, the range are lies. Go watch his videos if you want the exact numbers, but you should know when the K45 update came, completely changed everything, okay? So to change the mechanics. And I think it was because a lot of us were getting close to figuring it out, the black box. So I think they essentially said, well, let's tell him it's one thing, do a totally different thing. And Derek, I think, has a pretty good beat on it. You know, leave it up to the nuclear physicist. I'm just a dumb surgeon. So let him figure it out, and we'll let him get there. So this one gives you the numbers, the attack, defense, HP, and each troop has its own ethos, if you will, or personality, and that makes it behave differently on the battlefield for each turn, right? This is what I did in my first video. And by the way, to you people who are saying, this isn't true, this changed, yeah, I know. I want to get that meme of that, like, sour-faced kid, like, yes, okay, that video is like 2 years old, guys. Like, okay, there's changes. Congratulations. I'm wrong. I'm an idiot. You're smart. Good. Now sit down and shut up. So anyway, if you go back through the troop types, the base stats, right? Go to the T16. Let's go to the highest number. And these are the base numbers. You can freeze it and take a closer look. But I want to point out a couple of patterns here, right? Attack, you have the mount is the strongest, then the archers, which is, roughly little more than half than the mount. And right behind it for attack is ground, right? And then there's siege all the way at the bottom of the list, right? There's a little bit of a tighter grouping here. And to go from the difference in attack, mount 9,000, siege 4.5K, it's about twice as strong. And that's a lot for attack. Then you get to HP. This is a pretty staggering effing difference. Siege is all the way at the bottom at 4. Number 1 is ground with 28,000. Mount at 16,000. Archer at 11,000. Siege at 4.5 thousand. By the way, these numbers should help you understand where you want to get buffs for which troops, which ones you want to focus on. Understanding these differences and how catching up one, it's conceivable to give siege an attack that's almost as strong as ground, right? It's only a 500 difference. Are you ever going to get a siege machine to have an HP of 28,000? That is 6 times as big as the siege, right? Because you have ground, mount, archer, then siege. 28,000, 16,000, 11,000, 4.5. No, that's never coming close, right? Defense, ground all the way at first again, then mount. Right, what do you notice? The melee's up top, the ranged troops on the bottom. Archer 4.4K, siege 2K. Again, a 6-time difference for defense from number 1 and number 4. That pattern should stick out to you. So attack's not so bad. It's twice as much. But a 6 times difference from number 1 HP and number 1 defense, that is a pretty staggering difference. And siege all of a sudden starts to look really effing puny. And, of course, we went over it with the mechanics video. It's the range that gives it its advantage and the fact that it gets a couple of turns, which, by the way, changed because ground speed went up and ground now can make its way to the siege a lot faster and a lot less turns, so it made siege less effective. So now you have a troop that after the K45 update, let's look at those 2 stats. It's puny, very low stats across the board, right? The range is not nearly as far as the game says it is. This ground speed is not nearly as low as it is. So now the ground can get to it. So all of a sudden it becomes a less effective troop. Now, if you go to the actual buildings, the camps, and let's take a step back. Take a look at the mounted, let's take a look at the stables. You tap on the stables. This is new from the K45 update. Now, to Derek's credit, and again, I give Derek mad props for this, he figured out this coefficient before Evony came out with it. All right, if you tap up here in this little diagrams, these little icons in the upper right corner, when you tap onto the training menu, there's those 2 little icons. And if you tap on them, mount troops, counter ground troops, which gives them, so in other words, the game gives, in order to have what we're going to talk about a little bit, the advantages soon, the mount has a 20% extra increase in damage. In other words, their attack increases by 20%. See, then they're not specific. Is this by making the defense lower, or is it? I assume these are attacks, but the attack buffs are different, so that gives an extra 20%, and they're countered by ranged troops receiving initial damage 20%. Derek called it way before they ever released this. It's a 1.2 coefficient for the differences in those troops to give them those advantages. Now, what happens if you go? So let's take a focus here. What happens when you get to the workshop. If you go to the archer camp, if you go to the barracks, for ground troops, and the archer camp for archers, you'll see the same little tabs, and they see a 1.2 coefficient. But what happens when you get to siege? Isn't that interesting? Siege counters each other with a 50% damage increase, and siege is injured by an extra 50% by siege. So let's take a step back. The mount and the archer, being that you have a more powerful archer and a weaker mount by 20%, is a 40% spread, right? But those numbers are much bigger that we went over earlier with the troop counts, HP, damage, right? Siege, with these tiny little numbers that are a fraction of the other one's damage, HP, and attack, is a 100% spread, right? It's increasing damage by 50% and causes an additional damage of 50%. That's 100% spread. The numbers are bigger. So you have a troop that is much minuscule, a longer range, and a much more minuscule number for attack, HP, and defense, with a bigger spread, with a natural spread to kill each other harder. In other words, they're more the weakest troop is the most vulnerable troop to itself. What does that sentence mean? What does that say to you? Right? Here's every rally runner in this game knows this triangle, right? The Evony daisy chain, the Evony circle jerk, whatever it is. Mount kills ground, ground kills archer, archer kills mount. So where does siege fit into this? Right? And remember, those are 20% coefficient there, 1.2, so a 40% spread up there. Siege kills siege with a 100% spread. And then there's that little meh, I don't know if you see that little arrow of me pointing at the archers. Siege do kill archers. Usually, unless there's a massive buff difference, you're going to go negative. It's still useful. I use it every day. We used it today in echelons. It's useful to know, but you have to know you're going to go negative with that, because even then, your HP differences, your defense differences, it's just the range difference is what gets it done, but you're going to go negative, usually. So, again, look at those base stats one more time to review. And where are we in terms of thinking about, okay, siege, weakest troop on the bottom, kills itself, has a 100% spread when killing itself. The most vulnerable troop is most vulnerable to itself. Buffs win. Period. End of story. Siege versus siege. And the buffs for siege between K40 and K45 are a massive spread. K40, if you're well built, you're going to be in the low 2000s. And that's well built. I've seen K40s in the high 1800, 1900s, right? K45s, we're seeing 5,000 plus. I think somebody tapped 6,000 recently. That's a massive buff difference, all right? And then magnify it with the 50% buffer, right, each way, it's not even close. So the radical thing I'm proposing for keep builds, and what I'm telling people that they need to do, is no keeps under K43 should have any siege. None. It's cannon fodder, bringing it into battlefield. Today, we faced, I don't know if it's this, only, C4 guys or C3 guys will remember them, but we faced the old Alliance for Hammer Cause. Now, that guy quit the game. He was one of the biggest players in the game. I think it was like 60 billion. But he stopped it. He quit before the 45 update. I think he got caught pack loading. They wanted like an extra $100,000 out of him. They extorted him. It's messed up. Evony, doing their thing. But they dropped his keep into the middle of the game, and I don't even know if anybody was playing it, but it was like 60 billion. But it was a K40 or 41. And we just hit it with siege. And I think we were positive all the way down to 30 billion. Like by a factor of two. Like we were going 8 billion a hit. And then I think he was taking 4 billion power from us. So it was like, and then he was 7 billion a hit, and we were taking 3 billion. It was pretty staggering to see somebody who I remember was regarded as one of the most powerful in the game, one of the first to have T15s. That's how long I've been playing. When the K40 came out, to be able to know that 4 K44s could absolutely crush it with siege, where our buffs are. So I think that means a lot in terms of understanding, hey, if he can't hold against only 4 K44s, there are alliances with a lot more than us, and go even remotely even, what chance does anybody else have? That guy was a master coiner, like a major crazy coiner. What does anybody else have? So what I propose and what I'm telling people, if you're K43, that's when you should start building Siege. You shouldn't even unlock K43, unlock T15 Siege until you've done K43. Take the resources, get to K43, get your military academy up, get the buffs up to where you're knocking on 3,000, 3,500, where your debuffs can knock the person who's attacking down to be within the ballpark. And then you should have T15 Siege and build a real Siege army. So plans of action for those of you watching from C5+, skip your T15 Siege. When you get to K40, do not make your workshop level 40. Use all those resources to get to K43. Use those resources to get your march size up and build a keep without the siege. I would say build a little bit of siege so that you can have the layers that you need and you can actually have a little bit of defense and something that will take on that siege. But I'm telling you right now, I know a few keeps, one in my alliance too, that has minimal siege in it, was a K39 and was absolutely tanking because she's 10 or 11 billion and people were soloing her with siege. But if there's no siege to kill, they were going negative. They were like, what the hell? A few weeks ago, she got rallied by a siege rally. They tapped her once, went negative 4 billion, and then they said, okay, to stop rallying. I don't think they looked at the report. But if you drop into a battlefield, in a big battlefield, and you have no siege, and you are over 10 or 11 plus billion, which most people will throw, that's when you start to knock on, but especially 13, 14 billion, and you've got no siege in there, and people start throwing siege at you, they're going to shit their pants. They're going to be like, what the hell happened? People have done it, and they just stop rallying them. It's really funny. And she was a 39. She's turned for K40 this week. So if you're C5+, and you haven't unlocked T15 Siege yet, skip the T15 Siege, use the resource, go K43. Only if you can research appropriately. If you have the tax scrolls to support you, to get your tech power way up there in the 200 millions range, then you unlock the T15 Siege after your K43, and then start building your siege army when your buffs can support them, and they're not walking into the battlefield like dead meat. For C4 and under, those of us who were K40 and are around for the 45 update, sit out the battlefield. Your choices are going to be the following. You can sit out the battlefield and SVS until you are K43 and can have appropriate buffs and debuffs that you can amass the resources necessary. This sucks because, stepping away from battlefield, especially if you've been playing as long as we have, the game starts to become a grind. It starts to get really what the fuck. And Evony loses in this scenario because you haven't run out and coined to make them more money. You just were patient about it, sat out battlefield, or came late in the battlefield, and once most of the siege is gone from the battlefield, and it just sucks though, right? The game's going to get monotonous without battlefield. Or if you're C4 and under, you're a slow player, you're not a major coiner, you're mostly a botter, you're farming, it's a slow grind with the resources, and you want to be salient right away, and you know it's going to be like 2 years before your K43, dismiss your siege. I know that sucks, but you'd become overnight a massive trap keep. The siege no longer targets the archers. My defense reports, and I was going to dig them up, but I was just too lazy to scroll through and find them. The day before the K45 update, my defensive reports in Battlefield were siege. I'd get hit with ranged. Everybody used to send range first. I'd get hit with range, and my siege wiped out entire ranged armies. They never even got close to me. I remember people would solo me with Archer, thinking, I was like 20 billion, and think, I'll get the amount. And you would look at the battle report, and the siege just wiped them out before they even came close to killing anything. So the siege would swallow them whole. They changed the distances, they changed the range, they changed the speed. All of a sudden, as soon as the K45 update, overnight, my rallies of range against me, ground's getting the kills. So that's the Evony-flation. That's Evony rug pull, right? And the tough part about doing that, and this is what I want to point out to people watching this video. This is what happens when you fuck with me. I'm going to tell people and wake them up. The sunk cost fallacy is a cognitive bias. You need to know about the sunk cost fallacy. By the way, if you haven't, if you want to be an educated person and or you have conversations with people, you really are doing yourself a disservice if you never studied logical fallacies. I know there's some things taught in law school, but it's one of those things that highly recommend you read about, because you'll be like, oh, this is what that person was trying to pull. This is what Evony's trying to pull. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. It's a cognitive bias that causes people to keep investing in a losing situation because of past investments. I put so much money in my keep, I can't throw it away. I've got to throw more money at it to make it good. Throwing good money after bad. People are influenced, and this is important to read. Pause it, read through it. This is all of a sudden you're realizing this is Evony's profit model. They take the game, they change it, they rug pull you. We're going to make it all siege, all siege, all siege. And then overnight, we're going to change the mechanics so that now ground is the most powerful troop. That's the most important troop for your defense. Ground is the most important one on like all around. I mean, if you look at those numbers, ground is stacked for HP and defense, right? And you can jack up its offense now with the attack buffs. So it's not the same game. So all of a sudden, you build this massive siege keep. I remember I was in All-Stars, like right after the K45 update, and I just got my ass handed to me. My siege did shit because I didn't have enough ground built and mount to be able to defend it and kill. Not with the new mechanics. Only the old mechanics worked. So all of a sudden, you're what? Buying packs, buying resources. I got to build more ground. I need more food. I mean, come on. So you're reluctant to walk away knowing that this is what the profit model was. I was like, yeah, I'm ready to walk away. They're not going to give me a merger, whatever. Enough bad-mouthing them, but you should know they're counting on you to sit here and throw good money at bad when the game changes. My prediction is, now that ground is the most powerful troop, the next time they need to, the CEO needs to buy a new yacht, he's going to go and change it so that mount is the most powerful and ground is the most vulnerable. After people change all their builds to build massive ground armies, massive T11, massive T12, massive T13, so that archers just smash against it like a wave against rocks. And now that there are going to be vulnerabilities, right? And mount's going to come in and just wipe them all out. So, and they can do it with change of a button, change those coefficients, change the HP, change the attack on mount from 9,000 to 18,000, change the speed from ground to having that and doubling the mount speed. I don't know what they're going to do, but they have all these options and these little buttons to tweak to change the game completely on a whim's notice, and they're not being honest about any of those statistics about range and about range and speed. So you need to know that. So again, know that this is my reaction. This is essentially me every week with this game. Something's fucky. I just can't fucking deal. So again, I highly recommend people do a reassessment of what your build is in terms of how much siege you have. And if you are not a strong 43, a well-researched 43 or below, you need to really think about not just stepping in the battlefield, or if you want to be selling it right away and you know it's going to be a long grind, dismiss them, start having fun again, even if you give up that power. Let people come at you, hopefully with siege. Range is going to, if you're not over 12, 13, 14 billion, again, depending on how powerful your adversaries are, it may require just stacking out with really thick ground layers that will smash those archer armies before you come in. I can do other videos on all that other slide. Again, this is important to understand how to focus on avoiding the sunk cost fallacy. You want to focus on the future outcomes. Set your clear limits. Set your goals. I want to be a Titan. I don't have the coin to drop to be a Titan. I want to be a trap. I want to be salient. I want to be reinforceable and like tank people. I think that's a lot easier to do because you can do that with build T1s, mount T1 ground, now T1 archer. I've seen some people experimenting with and doing great jobs with. I can elaborate on some of that, but I'm not going to do that in this video. That's all I got for you. Hopefully you guys have any questions, post them in the comments. I'll try to get to them. When I do, I don't check the comments every day. I do check them on occasion. One other thing I'll point out, if you guys wanted me, these statistics, these things in terms of keep building, the earlier slide that I said your troop type's going to affect. If you have one of these that you want me to really go over, if there's enough people that say, oh, I want to watch a thing on Blazons, on subgens, on gear, on all that stuff, if one of these topics really piques your interest, just mention it. If I get enough quote-unquote votes for it, I'll make a video on it. Any other questions, you guys let me know in the comments. Thanks, Scott. Bye.